What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite subjects in boxing. Before I do, though, let me get the perfunctories out the way. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon if you're not subscribed. And thank you to everybody that donates to the channel on Super Chat, Venmo, and Patreon. Your support is very, very, very much appreciated. Now, there are two subjects in boxing that I talk about, actually three subjects in boxing that I talk about on a regular basis that almost always get me in trouble. One is the fact that I like Canelo Alvarez. I can't help it. I like the way the guy fights. And so I'm a Canelo Alvarez fan. I will admit it. Computerall or not. Second, I'm a Manny Pacquiao fan. I've liked Manny Pacquiao since he was being handled by Murat Muhammad before he made the switch to Bob Arum. And whenever he wasn't facing, before he really started, when he was facing like Eric Morales and those type of fights, I was really, really supportive of Manny Pacquiao. I thought he was a terrific, terrific boxer. And the last thing is talking about promoters, because I think that promoters are a necessary evil in the sport of boxing. But they do as much harm as they do good to the sport of boxing because they're very, very egocentric and they're very focused on their promotional company more than they are the boxer or the fan, their customer, and the people that they consider to be their product. So this video, I'm combining the conversation of two people, two of those subjects, which are Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao, and Bob Arum. As many of us know, Manny Pacquiao is on definitely towards the end of his career. But, you know, like a trooper, he's hanging on. He's doing what a lot of legends of the sports do, which is probably fight a little bit too long. He's going on. He's not quite 40 years old. Smaller guy. It's about time to wrap it up. But he's got a bout coming up for the WBA regular title against Lucas Matthysse. Or Matthysse. I've heard it pronounced Lucas Matthysse. I've heard it pronounced Lucas Matthysse. I don't know which one it is, but you know the guy that I'm talking about, El Machina, Lucas Matthysse. Now, the bout itself is not of a lot of interest to me. I will watch it. Obviously, I will watch it. I watch all of this stuff whenever I can, and because I enjoy the sport of boxing. I'm a boxing nerd. That's what I like to do. So I'm going to watch the bout, no doubt about it. I'm going to figure out how I think it's going to be on ESPN. So I have that. I don't think it's going to be on the ESPN Plus app. So I'm looking forward to it, even though it is a combination event between Golden Boy Promotions and Top Rank, who were my top two least favorite promoters until the arrival of Eddie Hearn, who wind up in very short time trumping them both. For my least favorite promoter. Now, though, I gotta say, the most interesting thing about this bout, though, because I think that as far as the fight itself, that Manny Pacquiao could be in a lot of trouble. I see Manny Pacquiao winning a decision. He ain't knocked anybody out in forever and a day, and I think Lucas Matthysse is just too slow, and I just don't see Lucas Matthysse being able to beat Manny Pacquiao at any point in his career. Lucas Matthysse is just not that good. Anyway, but he has a chance because he's got a big power. But the fact is that he's very, very, very slow. So I have a hard time believing he's going to catch him with anything major that's going to hurt Manny Pacquiao. And also, he's too slow to get out of the way of still a quick-handed Manny Pacquiao. So that's how I see the fight going. Unanimous decision for Manny Pacquiao. There ain't no way in the world Lucas Matthysse is going to get a decision in Malaysia against Manny Pacquiao. I can't believe that would be the case. However, the most interesting part of this whole thing to me is how the bout is come to fruition. And just for me, looking on the outside, I've been paying attention to very closely the relationship between Bob Arum and Manny Pacquiao since since the lead up to the Jeff Horn Manny Pacquiao bout last year and all the stuff that took place afterwards. Manny Pacquiao is saying that he is not represented by Bob Arum, and his camp having said that, like, look, our promotional contract with this guy is up. And I believe that it was up because Floyd Mayweather, Bob Arum had said that it was the last time he talked about a renewal taking place. He said that the contract that Manny Pacquiao was extended through the end of 2017. So once 2018 came around, it should have been a wrap. But you know how some guys do. They're not going to let it go. So I've been paying attention in this bout to all these conversations taking place with Manny Pacquiao with Bob Arum basically dogging out this bout with Lucas Matthysse, saying how it didn't look like basically putting everything out in the news about how Manny Pacquiao and his promoters didn't have the money, how it was going to fall through, and they were missing all these deadlines with ESPN, and Lucas Matthysse hadn't gotten his money and all that. And now over the last couple of days, it's Oscar De La Hoya has confirmed that the payments have been made. All of that stuff was taken care of, and they've got a bout, and the bout's going to happen right now. This is two things that really stood out to me about this, and it's just why I'm saying you really gotta, promoters can be some of the, like I said, they're necessary evil. They're necessary to build a boxer up when you've not heard of them. They invest the money in the boxer. They put them on a stage to develop their name so we get a chance as boxing fans to see who they are when otherwise we might not be able to. But once those boxers' names are recognized, they then oftentimes stand in the way of the established boxers that we want to see fight. In this instance, what I think happened is what Manny Pacquiao's team had claimed had happened before, when Manny Pacquiao tried to hold events in Dubai with, I think that was Amir Khan in Dubai, and what they said was that Bob Arum would threaten the financiers for the bouts with lawsuits, saying, look, if you try to throw this bout, if you try to make this fight or promote this fight, I'm going to sue you because it's like tortious interference with a contractual relationship or whatever it is in their individual jurisdiction. So Bob Arum would just hit whoever wanted to work with Manny Pacquiao and set up fights with Manny Pacquiao outside of the United States. He would just sue him. And on one breath, he would be talking about how, he doesn't know what's going on with the fight. And, he doesn't think it's going to work because these guys aren't going to show up with the money. But on the backhand of it, the reason that they weren't coming back with the money was because of him. And the fact that he would threaten to sue them if they did pay the money. So it's just like, that's what I was suspecting was happening with this. And now that's something that was said by Manny Pacquiao's representatives before this fight, before this Lucas Matthysse Manny Pacquiao bout got to the point where Bob Arum was saying that he didn't know where the money was and all these deadlines were getting missed. That's what his team had explained. That the reason why the other ones didn't happen was because Bob Arum was sabotaging them. Now, I clearly don't have any proof that this is what happened in this circumstance, right? Don't have any proof that it happened in the last circumstance. But I do know for certain that Bob Arum was trying to sabotage the perception of this fight at the very least. Because there's no way, the only reason anybody knew that there was any financial issues with the bout, with deadlines being missed and all that, was because Bob Arum was telling everybody that. Because Bob Arum would get up, because I think it was Ring, I'm pretty sure it was Ring magazine that he interviewed with. I think he might have actually, no, I'm sorry, it was ESPN with Dan Raphael put that article out a few weeks ago about how, specifically how the money being paid to ESPN was behind for the marketing of the bout. How the money, I think they're supposed to put a certain amount of money in escrow for Lucas Matthysse, how that was behind the deadline. Those all that stuff came from Bob Arum. So, because Bob Arum's name is in the article talking about it, and then Dan Raphael was citing sources that gave the information about the deadlines being missed as far as the marketing money and all that for ESPN. So, clearly Bob Arum is part of sabotaging the perception of this fight, because in the lead up to it, and I think this is, it's going to be in about 2 weeks, the last month of promotion for this bout, or at least the last 2 weeks for promotion for this bout, has all been about how the bout's not going to happen at all. So it's just really interesting, man, that like Bob Arum is, and I've done this analogy before. Some people, younger people might not have watched these movies, but I'd recommend that you do the Godfather series. And in The Godfather 2, which is probably one of the best sequels to a movie that I've ever seen. Because Godfather 2 was I think might have been better than Godfather 1, with this, but that's saying a lot because both those movies are terrific. And there was this character called Hyman Roth. And Hyman Roth was this old man that was just always pretending like he was sick but Michael Corleone, who was the guy, the main character or the main protagonist in the movies, said he was like, man, that dude thinks he's going to live forever. So that's what Bob Arum is, man. This dude think he's going to live forever. And it's just, this is just absolutely a snake in the grass, man. So you got him being a snake in the grass. I don't necessarily know if Oscar De La Hoya is as much a snake in the grass as he is just, borderline incompetent and irresponsible. And, as far as, the biggest things that I can point to with Oscar De La Hoya really is, personal things that he did in his life outside of the business. And the fact that both of these guys, Top Rank and Golden Boy, steady put on cards full of mismatches. And that's the last part of this video that I'll talk about. There was another article that came out. I think it was in a boxing scene or whatever, but it might even have been in Ring. But it was an article that talked about how promoters are finally adopting these streaming services, like going in full with streaming. Oscar De La Hoya is streaming on, going to stream bouts on Facebook and the like. Trying to find extra sources of revenue for boxing matches, I think have more something to do with the failure of these guys to put on good fights. I think that they think that it's their poor performance that have them looking for different mechanisms by which to make money. But at the end of the day, the biggest problem for me as a boxing fan, the biggest problem with boxing right now are the fact that people don't make the best fights that are possible. Like this Manny Pacquiao versus Lucas Matthysse bout, I think that this is actually a good fight. And the reason I think it's a good fight is because it's not a real championship fight. Nobody's wondering whether or not this is really, whether Lucas Matthysse versus Manny Pacquiao really is to determine who the best 147 pounder is. We know that neither one of those guys are in the top 5 welterweights in the world. Not Manny Pacquiao, not Lucas Matthysse or Matthysse. We also know that it's not for a real belt. It's a WBA regular belt. Now that title, the regular belt, used to be a major championship and belt until they created the WBA super belt. And when they created the WBA super, then, now the WBA regular is just a secondary belt. It's not the real champion. The WBA super champion at welterweight is Keith Thurman. The WBA regular champion is Lucas Matthysse. And Lucas Matthysse even won a vacant belt against, I think, Karim, because the WBA regular was vacated by Lamont Peterson when Lamont Peterson went to go face the real IBF champion, a real heavy welterweight champion in Errol Spence last January. So, it is what it is with all of these alphabet soups or whatever. But the big thing that I find interesting is when I look at these promoters, just, how, like I said, they're just they're a necessary evil. Even with the guy like Eddie Hearn, somebody had to promote Anthony Joshua and get Anthony Joshua's name to be known. Because as much as I think the dude is behaving like a punk as it relates to Deontay Wilder and the things that he has said, Anthony Joshua said about freezing people out and not letting people in the ring, and I'll take $50 million, but then he doesn't, all of that, still just the guy's presence as a legitimate heavyweight contender for the title, and I call him a contender for the title because there is no single heavyweight champion. But and that's why these guys need to fight, is because we need to know who the best at heavyweight is, so we can have the one heavyweight champion of the world because this guy has beaten the other champions. But we needed a promoter or somebody to let people know about that. The PBC is a situation that's set up where they're able to get that type of exposure to fighters without having a promoter because they sit on that platform. But beyond getting that initial name recognition, you almost wind up almost inevitably being in situations like Manny Pacquiao is with Bob Arum, where if he tries to leave, then Bob Arum wants to ruin it for Manny Pacquiao. He wants to ruin it for Lucas Matthysse. And quite honestly, he wants to ruin it for boxing fans, because this bout, like I said, it's not something where I think that this is, neither one of these guys are in their prime. And neither one of these guys are really, this bout is not to determine who top welterweight champion is. It's just to see Manny Pacquiao out there again. In the twilight of his career, have him be able to, be seen in person in Asia with people that have not been able to see him fight in person, if ever, definitely for, 12, 13 years. So it's just a good event to be having for them, and a way for him to build Manny Pacquiao Promotions. And, Bob Arum is the main reason that stuff was having problems, and, it is what it is. But with that, I'm out. Peace.